Chapter 8 The Destruction at Noonday. Philo stood speechless inside the doorway. The man on the bed got up and came over and kissed him. His cheek was still wet with tears. "That's goodbye from Zeno," said Hylas. "Thank you for all the care you took of him." They both sat down, facing each other. Philo said, "You look happy. Do you like being who you are? Are you glad you remembered?" "It would be awful to remember one who was a criminal." "I don't know what to say. A lot that came back has hurt, but there was so much else, good things that have left my mind empty all these months." "How do you remember?" "It was Decimus, when he shouted at me like it was something that had happened before, or almost the same way. It clicked in my mind. I remembered the other time, and whom it was it happened to." Outside, someone bellowed Philo's name. "Goodness, I'm supposed to be working, and I wanted to hear all of it now." Philo got up hurriedly. "A whole lifetime? Actually, if Conan doesn't need his bed, I'd like to be quiet for a little longer. I have a lot to think about, and it might be simpler to tell you all together." "Hylas?" "What?" "Nothing. I was just practicing to see if I'd got it right. It's a nice name, but it doesn't suit you yet. Can I call Lucia? Or can I tell Lucia?" The voice bellowed again. "Yes, but it sounds as if you'll have to be quick about it." When Philo had let the door curtain fall behind him, Hylas, who had been Zenos, was alone in the quiet half-darkness, suddenly tired. He lay down with his hands behind his head. It was strange to be able to look back on his life almost with the detachment of a stranger. He had been right. There had been no family, though many friends, and one in particular, the tribune Camillus Rufus, whose voice had come to him before the return of the rest of his memories. Had Camillus, probably in Britain by now, heard yet that Hylas had disappeared somewhere in Judea? Members of the imperial secretariat were not supposed to disappear. It was natural that he had remembered Nero so well, had he not worked in his palace in Rome for 4 years. He must write Camillus, but not quite yet, not till he understood better himself what had happened to him, for he saw now behind the actions that had brought him to Judea a pattern far beyond his own intentions and imagination. He had told Philo that his God had found him, but that had first happened long ago in Rome when he had been a slave. Yes, he remembered all that now, the childhood in a senator's house, and how he earned his freedom. Philo would enjoy that part of the story. Then after his life in Rome, there had been a time in Athens in the household of the procurator, growing nearer almost unwillingly to the new purpose that the God who had claimed him had for his life. He had volunteered to be transferred to the household of the legate of Syria when the Judean war started. But could it be that he had been needed in Judea for a reason that even he knew nothing of at this time? Would he be able to explain that to Philo and Conan? Briefly, he felt a strong wave of resentment against the God who had brought him to Philadelphia through such suffering and confusion, and yet could he doubt that there had been a purpose behind it, and that out of the suffering good had come, both for this family who had sheltered him, and on the pass to Machaerus? No. Through all that had happened, he had never been forsaken, and even in the worst of the pain, he had not been alone. He did not have to understand more than that at the moment, or decide yet what he should do next. His life had been so full of talking and importance and business that he had never learned to listen. He could learn that here in this small and crowded room as well as anywhere. He said it out loud, but softly, his voice husky with tears. "I am a follower of the way. I have a God who saved me through suffering from anything that evil can do to me. Teach me, Lord, through my own smaller pain, how to draw nearer to you and your purpose for me." It was not a proper prayer, but it was so long since he had prayed. Then there were other words in his mind, part of a Jewish hymn he had sung. Where? It was in Athens, not in Rome, where he had first believed. "I will say to the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him will I trust. I will not be afraid of the terror that comes in the night, nor of the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walks in the darkness, nor for the destruction that wastes at noonday. Because He has set His love on me, I will deliver Him. I will raise Him up, because He has known my name." The words came now with the warmth of a blessing, as if spoken by a much-loved and completely trusted voice. So much that had happened seemed very long ago, and he was tired. Hylas got up to bathe the traces of tears from his face, and then lay down again. He slept almost at once and without dreams. Outside, As the afternoon passed, the house was quiet. Even the Romans seemed to be resting. After all, one could not mourn a dead emperor, and particularly one who had only survived a few months, every hour of the day. Philo, polishing the tribune's mess silver, thought the hours had never dragged so slowly. Zenos, whom he had loved, had gone, and Hylas, a stranger, was behind the curtain of their room. Zenos had no previous life, and because of that he had belonged to them completely, like a member of the family who shared with them all that he remembered. Philo was afraid that he was going to be very shy of Hylas. He finished his work at last and went back through the storeyard and behind the fence to Lucia's lean-to, where she was lighting the fire to cook their evening meal. "He hasn't woken yet? I suppose he must be asleep, for the curtain wouldn't still be down," he said. Conan came in behind him. Who hasn't woken up?" "Hylas." "Who on earth is that?" Conan was tired and still upset from the morning's meeting with Jason. He flung himself down on the bench, looking dusty and cross. As if he had been an actor waiting to make an entrance, Hylas drew back the curtain and came out into the sunny courtyard. For a moment he stood blinking almost, shyly, looking across at the suddenly speechless family group. Then Lucia smiled and held out her hand, shooing Conan to make room for him on the bench. Hylas walked over, took her hand, and kissed it, and as he sat down he said, "Greetings from Hylas, son of Pylades, late of the imperial diplomatic service." "Oh, Hylas, really?" said Philo. "Yes, I suppose it explains my handwriting. Well, not completely. I was first taught that as a slave." Conan had turned and was staring at Hylas as if he had never seen him before, all his own weariness and bad temper draining away. He took the man's hand, then laughed, put his arms around him, and gave him a more brotherly hug. "It happened? You know?" "I know. Steady, Conan, or one of my scars will crack. I've still got those, even though I've changed my name." "Hylas!" "Yes, Hylas, you were right. I am Greek." "Now tell us everything. We've waited more than 5 months," said Philo, squatting down comfortably by Lucia's hearth and looking up at the familiar face that was already different in some way that he could not put into words. "What can I tell you?" Hylas asked Conan. "What you would have told us if you had come to us like any ordinary traveler. We have no right to know more than that." "Very well, then. I am Hylas, who was born in the household of the senator Caius Pomponius, a fur, the son of his mother's maid and his secretary. My father was called Pylades, and he had been born free. I was a bright child, so my master paid to have me trained as a secretary too, and when I was about 16 I began to work for him. It was more than a year later that he was found dead in his bed one morning with a knife in his side." "Murdered?" breathed Philo. "Did you see him?" "Yes, I did, and the blood of a murdered man smells as disgusting as any other blood. It is not something one enjoys seeing, but my master's death nearly caused my own as well, as the whole household was arrested on suspicion, though for the first few days I escaped."
Let's wait till...
"No, Philo, I'll tell you that part later." Lucia laughed at the sight of Philo's amazed face. "Take no notice, Hylas, but tell me, was your mother still living then?" "Yes, she was arrested along with the others, if you can imagine that, in Rome. That meant it didn't seem possible that I could do more to help her than give her the consolation of knowing I was still alive. But it was then I found I had been sent a friend, and an unlikely one. There are not many young tribunes who would trouble to concern themselves with the death of slaves, but Camillus Rufus, my master's son-in-law, was fortunately one of them." Hylas broke off, smiling to himself, remembering Camillus as he had been then, young and very idealistic, making mistakes from sheer enthusiasm, suddenly learning and with some pain that a slave could be as much a man as a senator's son. "I think he is in Britain now, Camillus. Our lives have brought us together only 3 or 4 times, but then the first time he saved me. With his help I found that the proof that I was needed to free the other slaves, and that at that very moment I was captured myself. He's strange. It was the memory of that which brought everything back this morning." He put his head back and laughed. Decimus's face was so like the others, only I didn't laugh then. "Please," begged Philo, "we're letting you go very fast, but you must explain that bit." "Very well. It was my own fault. Although I was an escaped slave, I found myself in the wrong place one morning in broad daylight, needing to go back to Camillus's house with the last part of my story safe in my mind. I had the bad idea that if I carried something on my head, it would act as a disguise, as I picked up a sodden thrown away palisade. I can still remember the smell. It started coming to pieces at once and fell down over my eyes so that I couldn't see where I was going. When it finally tore in two, the straw fell on an officer of the guard outside my master's house, a man who was looking for an escaped secretary. He noticed my riding bump too, Philo. Is that how it happened? Hylas, you're back? Yes. Hylas did not go on immediately, and no one dared to question him. They all had seen the scars. Then he smiled again. But we were all freed. Camillus did it. When he was sure of the facts, he made the person responsible for the murder confess and went to the emperor for a free pardon. He freed me and recommended me to a friend in the palace secretariat. That mostly has been my life ever since. But what were you doing in Judea? Asked Conan. I suppose that started last year when the emperor was visiting Achaia. I was there too, as part of the staff that had to continue the business of the empire, even while Nero sang songs and played at all the Greek games. Before I could return to Rome, the Jewish trouble broke out. When things like that happen, it isn't only legions that get moved about. Civil servants do too. There's a lot of paperwork involved in supplying them and arranging the political side of what happens when a country is invaded. The legate sent me on a mission to King Agrippa of Eretria, and then I went down to Judea. He paused, looking thoughtfully down at Philo at his feet, but hardly seeming to see him. Conan said quietly, You don't have to tell us everything. It was a big jump from a king's palace to being a hunted fugitive. I expect it isn't only your story. You can't tell just anyone about it. Philo thought, But we aren't just anyone. We love him. He wanted to know what had happened before, or happened more than anything he could remember, but he loved Hylas enough to understand that he must not ask. Then Hylas looked up again and smiled at their concerned faces. It's not that I don't trust you. I was wondering if I had the right to tell you something that it might be dangerous for you to know. You see, I am a follower of the Way, the Christos. I had word when I was in the north, in Syria, that there were still Christians in Judea, caught between the Jews and the Romans. Even after Vespasian drew back from the siege of Jerusalem last summer, it was very difficult to get out of the city. The Jews were so divided among themselves, and they fear each other almost as much as Rome. I saw that I had special skills that might be useful. I knew how to make a Roman officer believe me, for example. I had inside knowledge. I thought I could be useful. I never expected to have to help lead a party of refugees through an occupied territory. If I had, I suppose I should never have gone. The Jews were so divided among themselves, and they feared each other almost as much as Rome. I saw that I had special skills that might be useful. I knew how to make a Roman officer believe me. For example, I had the inside knowledge. I thought I could be useful. I never expected to have to help lead a party of refugees through occupied territory. If I had, I suppose I should never have gone. So that was why the patrol tortured you, breathed Philo. Yes, and now I know why I can begin to accept what happened. You see, I had spent too long with papers and letters and officials, and I had forgotten how it felt to be hunted and without hope. I had known it once. When I actually saw the people I had almost carelessly thought I could help. They were strong and brave, but this was something beyond their strength. I had to help with the practical things as well. There were women with babies who had been born during the first siege, who had never so much as seen a tree outside the walls, and sick people, and some whose influence and teaching were too precious to lose. He stopped and smiled again. Now I've told you, Lucia. Are we going to eat tonight? I missed my lunch, remember? The others got up, but Philo stayed where he was, deep in his own thoughts, understanding what a precious gift it was that Hylas had given them. Once fate had put him into their hands to save his life, but now, of his own choice, he had given his future to them again.